have the info. Bit of contention on Nana here, but what a flash.
Great flash is not going to result in the kill. In fact, Shox dealing with Devil. Another couple of kills going the way of G2. They've got control of Banana top mid, being pressured by 3D Max. I guess to an extent, David's still putting pressure onto Banana, but this round is definitely looking a lot better for G2. The individual's starting to step up here. A couple of nice flashes from 3D Max. Not going to be enough to get them through this round. Short of a nice clutch from David and Marker.
Yeah, 3D Max are really fighting for the Banana control. But he doesn't quite hit the timing here. Does he? Easy frag for him. David P's just left on the brackets. Gonna have to have a pretty impressive clutch for himself. Not gonna be.
Well, big change up there for G2, putting 3 players toward Banana, not something that we've seen just yet, up until that round. Also having the AWP on Kenny S, so starting to see the wheels in motion now on that CT side for G2 when they get that bit of extra money in their bank, when they get all the utility, when they get the AWP. It just looks like a completely different round.
I mean, let's look at it. The first gun round, like I said, they really had lackluster weaponry, and that one even came down very close with 2 3D Max players surviving and very low HP. Now they've got much better weaponry. They've got the utility flowing a little bit more. That last round, I mean, you saw the utility being exchanged back and forth between the CTs and the Ts in Nana. I really feel like Devil, he had a very short window with that flashbang to be able to make something work, and since he didn't really hit that timing, they weren't able to get too much done. But after that, you know, as Ts, if you don't make that window work, you kind of got to be happy.
Pushing the info, really dangerous. He needs to get back into the side, and Will, backed up nicely by Shox, who grabs 2 before going down. Center, he's dropped by Lucky and just needs to survive as long as he possibly can here as the rotation starting to come across. Jinx gets flashed. Nice work from G2. Great teamwork. It's just Marker left alive. That round was a little touch and go for a moment for G2, but now looking a little bit more solid. Marker eliminated by Kenny S. Nicely done with the AWP, still keeping himself involved. 4-2. Tables start to turn a little bit. It seemed like it was pretty even. In fact, it almost seemed like 3D Max was in an advantageous position when we were at 2-2, but now G2 really seems like they've got a pretty quick stranglehold of this game.
Yeah, it really feels like 3D Max is trying to force the issue on Banana quite a lot. Like, the utilities being exchanged back and forth between the T and the CT side, and G2 is putting so much utility. They're investing so much util in the earlier parts of the round on Banana to really try and make sure they have control of that and they strangle it off of the T side and make sure that they really have to work for it if they want control of that Banana. It's only been once in the first gun round with the lackluster weaponry that 3D Max was able to easily take control of that. In other situations, it really feels like, as the T side, if G2 is going to invest that much utility, I feel like you can kind of trade the util back and forth, and once the CTs don't have too many Molotovs, too many smokes and stuff like that to really fall back on, they kind of have 2 options. You rely on the crossfires in the bomb site, or you have to kind of get aggressive in the mid round like we've seen G2 do a couple of times already. They really try to disrupt how 3D Max is playing once they get that Banana control. Even in that last round, it looked like 3D Max, they really wanted to set up that B execute, but
they could.
G2 was just prodding and poking. They were kept flashing back into Banana and re-aggressing.
Yeah, it was a case of timing as well there for G2. You saw they had the AK lined up on that angle, waiting for the push. It didn't come, and as soon as they dropped the AK down, then the push came out from Shox. So really nicely timed from him, and it works out very well for G2. They're going to face up against an eco now. Big push through the smoke. Kenny S will back away, drops down the incendiary, takes the secondary angle. Nice flick, in fact, from Kenny S. This might be a day for Kenny S to have a bit of a ball, because he started off well. Every single round he's been having an impact with the AWP. A couple of nice headshots out from the pistol there as well. I'm getting some good vibes, at least from Kenny S at the moment.
Definitely looks like he's doing fairly well for himself. Should be interesting to see in a few more of these gun rounds whether he has that impact that he just had cleaning up those pistoling players trying to charge at him through Arch and take the AWP out of his hands. It's not going to be having any of that.
Well, he hasn't really died too much at all, has he? He's got, what, 3 deaths there, I think?
Yep.
Now taking a peek into Banana, so changing his position up as well. Really nice to see. He's looking sharp today, Philly. This is definitely dangerous for 3D Max if they don't find a way to shut down that AWP. Yes, he's going to be able to run wild all across the map, as you can see has happened in the last couple of rounds.
So again, G2's been really aggressive on Banana. Lucky's going to push even further and pick another player over towards that bottom Nana area, but you see the rotations come out from G2. What started off as 3 on Banana is now turned into 4 on the A side.
Yeah, very quick, nice rotations out from G2. You can really feel the difference that these last few rounds have shown us between the two teams. 3D Max almost floundering now. Though every single round that we see, it gets kind of worse almost for 3D Max. You know, some of the rounds were close, and now Well, Kenny's getting that opening pick. Kenny's getting the 3K, obviously, against an eco, to be fair. But still, you know, it's still looking more and more difficult for 3D Max. They need to find a way quickly into this first half. Otherwise, G2 is going to start to run away with Inferno. And we know that 3D Max did win Inferno in that last matchup between the two teams. So if they're not able to win it here, then that really begs the question what they can do then on Dust 2, which is not their pick.
It really feels like Banana's starting to be a little bit of a liability for 3D Max. Every time that they really try to go and take control of it, the exact same way every time they're really trying to force the issue up there. G2's just getting the better end of the stick. This time, 3D Max, lots of pistols and armor, a handful of smokes. Seems like they might have something particular in mind here. G2 and Kenny S once again, really disruptive, not letting them set up what they wanted to do.
Oh, look at this body, just lighting them up. It's a firing range. Absolutely brutal from G2 Esports. Kind of getting some good, like I said, good vibes from Kenny S. You know, you've got to go harking back to the good old days of Kenny S when he was undisputably the best AWPer in the world.
It really feels like 3D Max is playing quite hesitantly at the moment. They're sort of second-guessing themselves a little bit with a lot of the things that they're doing, and it's giving G2 the time to really aggress and take the initiative in this game, and they're really punishing 3D Max for that hesitation time and time again. Be interesting to see if 3D Max is going to start to recognise either the patterns of utility that G2 is throwing at them and whether they're going to adapt to that. But just as I say that, G2 is giving them a completely different look. You see Kenny, he's just passive towards that CT, ready for someone to overpeak. Devil very hesitant taking that banana control right at the start because he's been punished for it time and time again, but it's a passive hold on that B bomb site. Look at all the utility that G2 is holding on to at this point. They're just playing passive towards the bomb sites. They know that they've been pressuring 3D Max and that 3D Max is going to be hesitant to take map control, and if they do so, they're going to use a fair bit of utility doing it. And G2 is just playing the long game this round. They're holding on to all their grenades. 3D Max is using all their grenades to take map control that's being given to them freely in the first place.
So much confidence out from G2, and that's what happens when you're up 7-2. It's a bit of a case of win more. The snowball coming into effect here for G2. Oh, I say that now, but the round is not yet won. Still a lot of work to be done. 5v5, they haven't got that opening pick like they have earlier. That's at least an advantage for 3D Max, but time is starting to tick away here. And now we finally start to see the utility thrown out from G2. Body, what can he do? Not a lot. He gets taken down by Jinx. Jax with the trade. Lucky another one as well, but Devil through the smoke, able to dispatch of Lucky. Nicely done. I don't know that Shox is still on the side here though, and this is going to be potentially the linchpin of the round. If Shox can come up big, if he can deny the bomb plan, even if he can just get two, that's more than enough. And he's grabbed both, not to mention the bomb as well. Devil in a 1v2 now. The table's turned once again back in the favour of G2. The Molotov just for the insurance. Shox has no idea where he's coming from. Won't get that third kill. I don't think it's going to matter that time. Not quite going to be enough for Devil to plant the bomb. Kenny S will save. No, he won't. Yes, he will. Just. What a round that was.
Yeah, I don't really know how I like the approach from G2, but you know, they waited out all that utility. They held onto it into the late round, and then in the late round, once 3D Max went for the back and control again, they try to be disruptive, but it's in a bit of an awkward situation. You see, Body was actually fighting under porch there, and Lucky was just trying to spray through that jungle smoke to sort of support him. And lucky that Shox was in such a good position on the bomb site, because it really felt like it was going to be a 3D Max round.
Got 3 orgs out for G2 right now. Even though it feels like it was going to be a 3D Max round, it wasn't. G2 up 8-2 now. It's not looking good at all for 3D Max. Again, so much money on the side. What are you going to do about that, I guess?
I mean, just look what his name is. Pretty much says it all.
Yeah. Might get another one here as well. And he does. Pete coming out from Maka. And this is just org domination. Shox chiming in as well. And that is going from bad to worse for 3D Max, really. At this point, it just seems like they cannot get anything done. The last round, yeah, it was close. This round, complete whitewash the way of G2 Esports. We're back to square one. 3D Max is going to have to take an eco or a force buy here at best. And G2 just continue to build their bank.
Yeah, it is going to be the buy from 3D Max. Their money loss bonus is really building up quite a bit at this point, so they're doing pretty decently in terms of buying AKs. Maybe if you got the Deagle and the Mac 10, but not the worst buy I've ever seen in my life. 19-5 right now for Body. I don't think he's concerned about what 3D Max really has in their back pocket. It's not doing too much anyway. Great flash in there for Shox. He'll get a 2k, maybe even the third if he spams through that smoke.
It just is not working at all here for 3D Max, and you can see the confidence that is now really filling G2 Esports as they push straight through mid, putting 3D Max on the back foot again and again and again, and 3D Max now, they can't even feel safe in their spawn. Jinx, they'll try to clutch it out, but it's not going to be enough. 2 players still alive for G2 Esports, a comfortable round in the end. 10-2.
And again, another different look. They go charging down mid, they take the aim duels down banana without even smoking the bottom of it. Every time 3D Max is thinking about, oh, what did G2 do one round previous? What did G2 do a couple of rounds ago? G2 does something completely different. You're even seeing 3D Max, they just look like they're completely mentally out of this game at this point. You're seeing people getting killed with their knives out, running across the map, and you know, that's not a case of people just not paying attention or intentionally trying to die or anything. It's because you simply don't expect someone to continue to go for multiple frags, to continue to play so disruptively.
Yep.
You know, you're used to being in your sort of practice mode or whatever. You played, you know, hundreds of scrims on Inferno, and every single time you're thinking, oh, I throw this grenade and this is how player X is going to react. Usually I'm not expecting a player to pick me in this position, but you know, G2's playing with the supreme confidence. They're playing the disruption game right now. It reminds me of the Fnatic in their prime era. You know, just go continue to peak and re-peak and don't let the other team play their game whatsoever.
Well, they've just slowed down a little bit this round, G2. They know that they're up against that pistol buy, so they're not doing anything particularly over-eager. Using a bit of that utility to keep 3D Max at bay, but playing those long angles, a very smart round out for G2 Esports, still keeping 3D Max guessing. Every single corner you peek here as a T is going to be one that you expect to get shot in the face by an AWP, and they'll make their way in toward the A bomb site, be covered off by Body. Just going around the world, and that's not going to work out nicely at all. Body just holding the angle with that scope, easy as you like. 3 kills on the AUG once again, and he's up to 23-6. First half is going phenomenal for him and for G2 Esports. 11-2 now, and it just does not get any better for 3D Max, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Is this a case of GG go next? Already? Like, is that too early to call?
It really does look like they're mentally out of this game. They haven't taken another tack just yet. They really haven't found an answer for anything that G2 is throwing at them whatsoever. The one round that they took was, you know, when G2 had a bit of a lackluster buy, and even that was quite a close one. They've never really put the economic pressure on G2's CT side to stop, you know, Kenny getting his hands on the AWP. Not that he's needed it, the way that Body's playing. He's out of his mind at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, not even just Body, like everyone is fragging right now for G2 Esports. It's just that they seem to be running toward Body more often than not. Kenny's got a nice angle here, and he'll hit the shot as well. Great stuff. Great reaction times. And Jackson in the meanwhile as well, able to chime in with one. So from 5v5 straight away into a 3v5. Nice entry from Marker, but straight away traded out by Kenny. And G2 Esports, it's looking too easy for them at the moment, and this will be their 12th. David in a 1v4. Can't expect a lot from him, but who knows? Jax knows.
So last round of the half here for 3D Max. This is the kind of round where, more often than not, I see the T side snag a bit of a free round with the CTs getting a little bit too sloppy. They're in steamroll mode, and 1 or 2 mistakes can lead to a bit of a snowball where the T side can kind of get a free round if someone's just over peaking or one too many players is running down mid or banana, but we'll see if that is going to be the case. Kenny's just going to flash mid for Body there. Doesn't take anything out of it. This time Nana control taken by 3D Max fairly quickly here. See if that really causes many rotations. G2, the way that they're playing at the moment, they're really trusting Shox and Jax to hold onto this B bomb site more often than not. Here's the aggression on the port side. One player boosted up. Kenny's going to AWP boiler from below him. Dear Lord, Shox, how have you found yourself in this position? The smoke's being exchanged back and forth.
Oh, I don't know if he can get back now. Not safely anyway. Needs a flash or something at the moment. Not too keen to, and Devil's made a bit of noise there. Bit of a bait perhaps. Shox gets peeking in, taken down, and it's all on Lucky.
Look at G2, they haven't budged a single bit. All of them are still pit and carb side. They're like, if you're going B, you're going B, best of luck. Like, they just don't move, any of them. There's no rotation. Oh. And look at 3D Max is just rotating back towards the A bomb site. You know, Jax might be getting a little bit antsy towards the Moto site, but there's still 3 G2 players on this bomb site. How would you expect this for 3D Max?
Yeah, utility going to be going in there for 3D Max as well to deal with, so wasting even more time. Rotation does actually go across from G2, so there is that one small saving grace at least for the T side, but Kenny is still on the site alongside Body, the 2 guys that have been fragging up a storm around the world. by the looks of things here for 3D Max, so at least the rotation will have an impact. Jax needs to be very careful, knows that CT is dirty, backs away into construction. Take that second angle, and meanwhile Kenny S does drop. It's going to have to be a hero play from the B side players for G2. 9 seconds, they might not have time to plant the bomb. Jax, if he gets rid of Devil, he would have won the round. And Body, in fact, on the rotation, will win the round, as there's no one covering off Banana, well enough at least. Just hit the defuse. I thought that they didn't get the bomb down, but they did. So he doesn't win the round.
The amount of times where I see a 12-2 half where the team that's getting puddled pulls out the third round.
Yeah.
I almost never see 13-2s. I feel like it's always a 12-3.
That's true. Oh, man. Well, it could have very, very nearly been a 13-2 there. Body, if he was half a second earlier, which I thought he was, but in the end, I mean, a 12-3, I think you'll take that any day of the week as a G2, and I think it's something I was maybe a little bit worried about here for 3D Max. You know, like I said, you look at the players on this G2 roster, and any of those guys can really just have an absolutely enormous game. And we're kind of at that point now where G2, the ones that have that experience, just absolutely steamrolling. And we'll see if that continues into the T-half. Doesn't always work that way, you know. It's always a tale of two stories. Maybe the T side not going to be so great.
I mean, G2 is absolutely on a heater right now. They don't pretty much need to fall over to win this game at this point. You know, 1 or 2 T-gun rounds, bit of misspent economy on the CT side, and 1 or 2 people not having the incendiary grenade that they might have needed. And it could be the game.
Could be.
G2 now, they're taking banana control. Actually, David P, how aggressive was he down second mid-apps, and then the frag exchange back in mid? This is a bit of a messy round here, into a 4-on-4, but G2's still got the util to hand.
They've got the shots as well. The Glock train working quite nicely. Devil picked up there as well and eliminated pretty quickly. B-Bomb side completely in control of G2 Esports. Shock's locking down Banana as well, doing damage, getting kills. What can you do at this point as 3D Max? The bomb goes down onto the B side. David P is not having a good time right now.
He's surrendered. He's Belgium, so it doesn't count.
That's true.
Alright. So, I mean, T-Pistol on top of that, I'd be feeling a little bit sad if I was 3D Max, especially. I suppose, I mean, one thing that you can say is that if you do want to get back into this game, I feel like as the CT side, a force buy's on the cards in the next round, because, let's face it, lads, like, here's your options. You force buy with pistols and armor and the same utility that you would have got in the next round. Anyway, if you had got, you know, an M4 or whatever. Oh my god, he doesn't even get that one. Or in the next round, you can have an M4, a smoke, and a flash. Or in this round, you can have a CZ, a smoke, and a flash. Really doesn't feel like, as you would say, much of a muchness to me.
You want a CZ?
Yeah, I'm down for the force buy. It's the only way they're going to get back into this game at this point. They need to get a bit of a break here, because let's face it, they're kind of getting pummeled into the ground.
Yep.
If you take a win with these pistols, you can potentially...
maybe have a couple of AKs go through next round.
Yeah, you can upgrade some weapons. You can sort of cheat your way into a half-decent economy, which is really what you need at this point. You need to start to get that economy rolling, potentially have money for a double AWP in the future, have enough money to be able to hold on to enough utility to stop G2 from just rolling you over.
Well, this might be a nice start. Devil with the deagle. Body on 54 HP, so there's a chance here. Smoke goes down, G2 just backing away.
Yeah, so the rotations are coming in from the CTs because the first smoke has been expended so early. 120, G2's already forced out one smoke. You're seeing Maka, he's coming in from the jungle side with an extra smoke to be able to throw that on. Now Devil's going to chuck his out. So they're just slowly bleeding the utility out of 3D Max. G2's very aware that this is a common thing on Inferno. So many choke points you can use the smokes on that force buys with pistol armor and a bit of util is very common on this map. This is the difference maker though here. Maka, he's coming with the extra smoke. He's going to drop that, and G2's going to be really cutting it close. They're going to be starting to run out of time if this third smoke is expended by Maka at the correct time.
Doesn't look like it's going to be. The creepers come out for G2. Maka just needs to throw it now. But he's still holding on to it. And they might get put in the ground as a result. Punished, absolutely. Maka goes down. Shocks and Kenny S getting the entries. And that is the B-Bomb side. Well and truly in the favour of G2. There was 10 or 15 seconds there where if he would have thrown the smoke, it potentially could have been a round winner. 3D Max, but G2 get the bomb down. And they have a 3v2 in the position of Kenny S. Definitely an unexpected one. This will be another round for G2.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's hard to judge if you're Macca in that situation. Smokes last 18 seconds. You got 30 seconds on the clock, or 35 seconds. In my mind, you drop that smoke right there and then, and if G2 is forced to go through the end of that smoke, they've got, what, 15 to 20 seconds to be able to clear the bomb site completely and get the bomb down in time before, your 3-second counter or whatever. You've got a couple of pistolers in close quarters that can make that entrance into the bomb site nice and messy. Maybe you got 1 or 2 guys dancing around new box or coils at the right time, and you can potentially stop that bomb plant, and that's your round right there and then. But he's trying to make it too much of a sure thing, just holding on to that smoke for a little bit too long, that if he feels like in his mind, if I drop this at maybe 25 seconds, they have to run through the smoke no matter what, and then we can 100% win, rather than the, 95% or whatever else you want to call it, where, you're worried about
them coming in with 10 seconds.
Them coming in and just blowing all your heads off.
Yeah, I guess it's a risk versus reward, and in that case, the risk didn't pay off for 3D Max. You maybe I can argue that you have to take risks to come back from a 3-13 deficit. Another force buy through for 3D Max in this round, but how much longer this map is going to last really does beg the question. G2 Esports looking far too comfortable right now, and especially heading into a map like Dust 2 as well. As we head onto the A-bomb site for G2, I think there's definitely some problems ahead for 3D Max in this series. But nice shot from Marker. See if that makes much of a difference, as it does bring it back to a 3v4 at the very least. Still need to ask for a little bit more damage out from him, and that is not going to be the case. The Mac 10 proving to be too much to deal with. Bomb's still not planted on the site though, so 3D Max at least have some time to rotate across, but I think it's wishful thinking at this point for 3D Max.
Yeah, G2 looks like they're in firm control of this game and they're not going to let go. Looks like, Jordan, you may have been a little bit more sensible on the predictions, but we still got a couple more maps of CS in us, and I really do have to say, to my credit, G2 are really good at beating other French teams. Alright, I saw them versus Vitality and WesG where they're able to win that game as well. Like, if there's anything G2 could beat, it's the other French teams, to make sure they're the best French team, or whatever you want to call it. If they play another opposition though, maybe things get a little bit sloppier and difficult for them.
Yeah, let's not bring up Renegades versus domestic competition either in that case. But G2, they did lose the series after winning the first map in the upper bracket when they were playing a couple of days ago. So I guess you can argue 16-13 on train in that case. So definitely a little bit closer and a little bit more to sort of take away from that for 3D Max. For this one, there's absolutely nothing to take away for 3D Max, apart from saying we have to completely reset heading into this second map. At the very least, 3D Max is not a terrible Dust 2 team. They do play it a little bit. They don't mind playing on Dust 2. So there is that to take away. It's not like they're going on to a permaban or something like that, which in fact was trained, to be fair, prior to the last couple of series.
That's a classic. Just run up mid and AWP the jungle player 5 seconds into the round.
Why not?
I don't really think that's going to help them too much. Something tells me
it's not going to help 3D Max at all.
No.
RG's getting full control of Banana at least, but if he pushes the smoke here, he may have a rude awakening. Flashbang comes through. It's actually going to be G2 that has the rude awakening. He'll get the smoke down as well. Nicely done from him. Good grenade in. There's one more G2, which there is not. Could have been problematic for him. Only to clear out the balcony. Still full control of Banana, and finally the player starts to rotate back. No, Haji still hanging around. 2 players on A. Tough to hold here for 3D Max, I think. Yeah,
just the lackluster weaponry is really going to be the killer here for them. These flashbangs better be real mid coming out from these 3D Max players. Macca's going to have to throw an absolute banger for Jinx here in the pit, because otherwise I think it's going to be pretty difficult for them to hold this one off.
Alright, now he's more than content to just sit and hold the line. 30 seconds, G2 really keeping 3D Max waiting. Absolutely no utility.
It's a classic because, oh my god, Shocks, you're really going to go up there by yourself with the bomb? Nope. Oh, and he doesn't peek.
That could have been the round, Devil, if he would have peeked.
He doesn't know that though. But it still is the round.
Oh well, it's 17 seconds, the bomb at least in the mid. It's still retrievable for G2. Kenny needs to hit a nice shot. They're winning the round, but they're not going to win it fast enough. G2 just put in a poor position. Shocks lining up a smoke, I think it was. They're not going to be able to clean it up here and now. It's not going to be the 16-3 that we expected. What a weird round that was. Okay, 3D Max survive. but a lot of money for G2. So how much does it matter? How much does that one round really matter?
I feel like that round was the classic where G2 is just like, they're so far behind, they're bound to make a mistake, right? They have to take a risk to get back into this game, whereas I feel like 3D Max are at the point now where they're just like, whatever, man, like, I'm going to sit in this position, and if I have to come out, I will, but if I don't have to come out, you know, that's fine too. Down with whatever. It's aggression from Shox, and that's the timing you got to be hitting if you were Devil last time, but there, Shox doesn't hit it either, and he gets double peaked. Oh, the rain of grenades.
Artillery strike, really, from 3D Max.
I mean, you're the World of Tanks caster, so I'd say, you know, being the expert in that.
Not anymore, mate, not anymore. Let's put that by the wayside. Let's keep that where it was in history. Well, 15-4. It's going to turn into maybe 15-5 here as G2 in a precarious position. Jax has an opportunity to lurk in onto this side and maybe do a bit of damage. Where does that leave Body? There's been pretty phenomenal throughout this map so far. Information being gathered by Jinx, and if Jax holds this line for much longer, he's going to be spotted, and he is. Okay. Easy as you like. Let's see what Body can do. 1v3 now, does have HP, does have utility. Just needs to get rid of David. Could have planted the bomb, but not the case this time. So, they're left wanting still for G2. And they'll have to take an eco as well.
Yeah, look, if you're 3D Max at this point, this is where you start to work your way into the series. It's not about winning Inferno anymore. This is about, you know, I'm going to get my aim in. You know, we're coming back in that last one. You're taking the momentum off of G2's little hot streak that they've had as a burner into this game. Because you really have to say, like, it's like you said, a lot of them are quite sharp at the moment. They're playing quite well. Body's having himself a hell of a game. But, you know, you talk about consistency over a larger sample size of rounds. It's something that we haven't seen as much from this G2 team. Have absolute heaters like this in other competitions. So, you know, sure, it can happen, you know, for a string of 1/2 or 10 rounds or a little bit more or something like that. But if 3D Max stretch this out, if they make G2 really have to work for this win and start to take some of that momentum away, moving into Dust 2 could be a different story.
Absolutely. That's where the sort of doubt starts to creep into your mind for G2. If they would have finished this at 16-3, they're almost at a sense where you could consider, like, okay, we've almost won the series. Yeah. Right? You go into Dust 2, you start off well, and that's basically done and dusted. 3D Max are mentally out of the game. But it's not going to be the case now, even as we get to, at best case scenario for G2 16-6, 3D Max have been able to come back in. They've been able to find a few rounds there. It's not the momentum that they would have wanted, but it's at least stopped the momentum of G2.
Yeah, and it really does make a difference because if you start to have some good rounds, if you start to win some duels here or there, you start to get your game working for you, it can really start to make you feel like, hey, I can get back into this series, I can start to play my game. But if G2 never gives you the opportunity for you to start to get yourself into the series, for you to start to get yourself warmed up and get your confidence going, if they never give you that opportunity, then you'll never know what that feels like heading into Dust 2. You'll never know, you know, can I start to play well here? Do I have, you know, what it takes in this series? Or is this just not our day? But if you can start to make a 10 round, you know, sort of comeback or get 9 rounds in a row and slow down G2, then maybe there's a better chance on Dust 2.
This is interesting from Kenny S with the bomb. Doesn't want to be peeking through that smoke too much longer. Back away. Pressure being put onto Banana, being put onto A right now. Both sites a little bit wary right now for 3D Max, but Maka with the AWP.
I like this.
Just taking a bit of an aggressive peek. Smoked off. Pushes through it. That's a lot of info for 3D Max.
It's a bit of false info, to be honest, Jordan. Like, they're seeing nothing in bracket. What do you think? What are you saying if you're like, oh, there's nothing in bracket? Sure, you've heard one guy burning in Boiler, but you have no info on Banana. You can't expect all of G2 to be in carpet right now, and you would never go aggressive on mid if you're Maka then if you think that they're not coming A.
Well, the Molotov's going to force Jinx out of position as well, and I think this might finally be it for G2 Esports. It's taken a few more rounds than they might have liked, but bomb goes down. 16-6 is a pretty good scoreline. I'm sure they would be happy to take that one. Lucky, keen to push through this smoke, decides not to, and we'll go down to Devil. Always a chance here, even in the 2v4 for 3D Max to make some magic happen. They have some utility, the flash goes in, but now left without it. It's going to be just on the aim duels. Haji gets 1, evens the numbers slightly. Devil dropped. So too is Haji, that'll be the end of the map. And realistically speaking, no surprises to see that one cleaned up by G2 pretty comfortably. 16-6 in the end. Philly I mean, at the start, it looked like 3D Max, you know, first couple of rounds that they won, it was like, oh, okay, we might have a game on our hands here. But then G2 straight away, body, Kenny S absolutely destroying the entirety of the first half, and I think it was always a matter of time, really, before they finished off that first map.
Yeah, that was the individual firepower edge really shining there for G2 on a map like Inferno that 3D Max was able to take off of them in the last series. And you got to say, I don't know how much that really shows itself for the rest of the series. You know, we'll see how things go on Just 2. That was G2's pick, which, I mean, they won Train in the last series, which was their pick. Let's see if they can continue to win their pick up against 3D Max, and if they can do that, then that's going to be a 2-0. But you did say 3D Max play a little bit of Dust 2. I mean, they managed to get themselves into the game a little bit in that map, but I mean, you can sort of justify that if you're 3D Max. You can sort of say, look, Body had an absolutely excellent game. Kenny S was playing pretty well. Let's see if we can try to get into this next map and say, you know, how often is it that these players are going to have such an explosive half as they had in the previous game?
Well, I mean, if they can do the same, I think Dust 2 is definitely a map where, you know, you have those explosive individuals. They're really just going to be able to take that game away from you. So I would be a little concerned sitting in the 3D Max camp.
Yep.
You definitely need to kind of go back to the drawing board, I think, with 3D Max. Take whatever time it is. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes between these two maps, and kind of figure things out, because that is really not what you would have expected. You know, having already won a series against this team as well in this particular qualifier, you know, it's not the start that 3D Max would have wanted, especially on a map that they, I will say, fairly comfortably won 16-7 last time. It's a complete turnaround, and this is what we talked about when we were looking at the vetoes. Was it going to be G2 Esports going with the same sort of a strategy going in? Are they going to go for the same veto strategy, or are they going to change up the vetoes significantly enough that we see a completely different series? I don't think that they have. I think they'll train pretty straightforward sort of swap for Dust 2. Aside from that, they've learned what they did wrong in Inferno, and they're going to use that as their way to beat 3D Max today.
I don't think G2 have ever been that sort of, you know, out veto you sort of style, unless you're talking about the iterations with existence in it or whatever. It's always been sort of, we're going to play better next time, or we're going to adjust smaller things.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we saw today. I mean, again, we can't really say because we didn't get to watch that other match, but the result there definitely does sort of completely flip it on its head, 16-7 versus 16-6. And in this match, this is the match that's more important, Pilly. This is the knockout match. This is the match that qualifies 100%. You through to that upper bracket final. Again, a difficult game against Big, of course, regardless for both of these two teams. But I think that's really the perfect start for G2 into this series, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, they absolutely thumped them pretty much, I mean, harder than G2 were able to do in the last time, or 3D Max were able to do the last time they played on that map. So,
all right, well, lots of questions to be asked here for 3D Max. We're going to take a quick break, guys. We'll be back, though, with map 2. Don't go anywhere. Dust 2 coming up next.
Think she can't get a last-second clutch? Watch this. Think he can't carry his team while streaming in high resolution? All the while recording a once-in-a-lifetime win? Watch this. Think leveling up only happens in-game? Watch this. On Intel Core i7, they'll rise to every challenge. Now it's your turn. Game, record, stream without compromise on Intel Core i7.
The synergy of brute strength. Born of elite core power. To thrive under pressure in the most hostile conditions. And built to overclock. Prepare for combat. Go forth and conquer.
From the back roads to back streets, I see you foes trying to trap me, but I don't run like a track meet, even though I'm number one like an athlete. And the way I maneuver around you and through you, I'm coming and I'm bound to pursue you. I'm everything that you knew of, plus more. What's in store is I'm about to get to ya. Sleepless nights, better think this twice before you step to me and come and speak with strife. There's a lesson when you reach my life. It'll be chin checking and I teach you right. Plenty tried, plenty failed. Too many times I seen plenty bail. And there will be no surprise what I'm about to do when you are looking through my eyes. See many go, see many come. See that they won't bring it to me, son. Try me if you want, but won't be any fun. I'll take the challenge, I'll be anyone. I'm the one, I'll be quite clear. Bow down to no one, I'm right here. I get it in, I don't fight fair. And guess what? I'm your worst nightmare. Cause I ain't taking no losses, and I don't even care what the cost is. Are you prepared for the forces I'm about to bring? Cause I'm the boss of all bosses. I penetrate your thoughts and fill them with doubt. You gon' feel where I'm coming and feel what I'm about. If they come in with the drama, I'm wheeling them out. Cause I ain't about to have somebody here stealing my clout. I keep my friends close, enemies closer, cause that's the way it is and the way it's supposed to be. Anybody can see there's only room for one, and that one is me. Plenty tried, plenty failed. Too many times I seen plenty bail. And there will be no surprise what I'm about to do when you are looking through my eyes. See many go, see many come. See that they won't bring it to me, son. Try me if you want, but won't be any fun. I'll take the challenge, I'll be anyone. I'm the one, I'll be quite clear. Bow down to no one, I'm right here. I get it in, I don't fight fair. And guess what? I'm your worst nightmare. I'm your worst nightmare. Are you prepared? I'm your worst nightmare. I know you're scared. I'm your worst nightmare. Are you prepared? I'm your worst nightmare. I know you're scared.
Hey guys, welcome back to the IEM Sydney EU Closed Qualifiers coming up on 2 a.m. here in Sydney. Feeling hope it's more of a reasonable hour for all you guys watching. But for us, G2's kind of making our job pretty easy right now. 16-6 on that first map there. Inferno, very, very comfortable for them now heading into Dust 2 up against 3D Max. I mean, this is not looking good for 3D Max at the moment, is it?
Yeah, they're kind of getting bodied at the moment, unfortunately, so that's
have a better word.
Pretty rough. I mean, look, they're heading into Dust 2, and you got to put a little bit of context into it. So far in this qualifier, they've managed to take Dust 2 off Big, who are currently at the end of the qualifier and at the end of the gauntlet for either of these teams to make it through against. And they also took it off North, where that's a bit of extenuating circumstances. North, they had to forfeit the first map, and then 3D Max played against them in the second map being Dust 2, where, you know, as North, you're kind of time constrained, and then after that first map, you've had to forfeit. You might not be going into that game with 100% focus, perhaps.
Right. So you're feeling maybe a little confident for 3D Max? Maybe more so than most people might be, having watched that 16-6?
Yeah, 2 from 2 on Dust 2, but at the same time, I mean, you made the point earlier, off stream or whatever, that G2 is pretty good on their Dust 2. I'd have to agree with you there, and it is their map pick, so I don't know, I'm feeling pretty lack of optimism than I was before the series started for 3D Max.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the start of the series, you sort of said you have a pretty reasonable chance for 3D Max going through. Yeah. I was kind of arguing the other side of the coin, where I thought G2, with that experience, have a better chance.
Yep.
At the moment, it's looking like, whatever the case is, G2 today are looking like the better team, at least based on Inferno. Now, Dust 2, I feel like, is a map where if we get those big individual performances out from G2, like what we saw earlier on there on Inferno, Inferno, it probably can go pretty quickly. You know, Kenny S with the AWP, if we see those AUGs, if we see the SGs coming out there for the T side, even for G2, doesn't really matter. I think if they've got that aim on point, Dust 2 is definitely a map that they're able to run away with. And it is a map that they're very comfortable on. Same can be said for 3D Max, though. So I think we're kind of in for maybe a little bit of a closer map here than what we were on Inferno, at the very least. Yeah,
I feel like if it's a bit closer of a map, then 3D Max have a lot better of a chance. That sounds like a pretty stupid statement to be making. But across a larger sample size of rounds, I feel like G2 is a really tricky team. They can have body who can just drop like 150 ADR and a half or whatever and just go absolutely mental. Kenny S, you know, they've got all the talented players to be able to absolutely rip 3D Max apart in a shorter sampler size. But if your halves are starting to run out a little bit more, you're forcing G2 to start to play more of the other side of the map. Like, we barely even saw them play their T side on Inferno in that map. They thumped them so hard on the CT side that they barely had to really do anything. There was one gun round that was fortunate for G2 where they're all stacked up in the apartments, and then the AWPer from 3D Max was getting aggressive there because he didn't see any Ts and he got punished for it. And that's all G2 needed to win the map. That's not a strat. They didn't need to pull any of their strats out. They didn't really need to go through any of their defaults or executes or whatever that they might have on the map. They just did so well on one half. They were able to close it out quite comfortably after getting the pistol on the other halves, or on the other side rather, once they switched over. So I'm interested to see in a closer game, you know, across a larger sample size of rounds where one G2 player isn't just absolutely going nuclear and, you know, banging them out of the server, whether 3D Max can make a better accounting for themselves.
Alright, well, time to find out as we do head into Dust 2. 3D Max starting off on CT side, and G2 Esports, well, kind of looks like they've read this one perfectly. They're going to get a free run straight into the A-bomb side, all the way up short. 3D Max would have heard that, but how much help that is going to be for them? Well, David P very quickly, and a very nice shot as well. As Shox goes down, bomb carrier, as he does slow down G2 just a little bit. But does feel like the bomb is going to go down fairly safely indeed. Kenny S hasn't cleared out pit, so really could be problematic here for G2 based on the positions of 3D Max. They've played it well so far. Kenny S still alive and kicking. Devil gives away his position, but does manage to hit the headshot onto Kenny S. Does drop into 1v2 now for Lucky. Just needs a couple of quick headshots with that P250, but not landing. And the 3D Max player is getting on top of him. This is where it comes to push it, coming to shove. And unfortunately for Lucky, I think it might just be a little bit too late. So he doesn't have the ability to survive. Bomb is going to be defused just in time. And 3D Max, they play that one nicely. It looked problematic for them at the start, but straight away, reading it very well. Getting the kills that they needed.
Yeah, it's just a pre-planned pistol round, really. You sort of stack your chips up. You try to really lean heavily towards certain areas of the map, and you can be super aware that when you're setting up that pistol round, when you're setting up a certain strategy, that, oh, well, what if G2 just runs up short? Well, then we do this and this. You know, you have your fallback plans, and it's worked out perfectly for 3D Max in that situation in question.
Yeah, quite a numerous number of things kind of went wrong for G2 there. Obviously, the bomb player getting picked off early as well. Pit not being cleared.
You need enough money to be able to get your AWPs on board, and if they get themselves rolling a little bit faster here, then I think they have a much better chance of taking this map out off of G2, because they're under a lot of pressure in that last map, and it felt like they didn't really have the opportunity that they needed to get back into that game.
You're not wrong. 3D Max starting off well in this one. I mean, we looked at the start of the last map. It was at 2 apiece at one point, and it kind of felt like 3D Max were doing okay for themselves. But then G2 kind of just started steamrolling. So I wonder if that is going to happen here as well. I mean, it started off well enough for 3D Max, but we know that CS is really a game that can flip on its head very, very quickly indeed. Lucky with the AK here. Does take a fair bit of damage from that HE nade. Shox gets dropped in mid as well. Devil just not picking his head up yet, but eventually able to dispatch of 1 or 2. B-bomb side though taken control of by G2.
These G2 players are so low. I like the approach. I'm surprised Shox actually got himself picked in mid there when he had a smoke for the mid to B cross.
Just throw the nade. Killed Kenny. This one won't. So still a chance for G2. If Kenny just pops heads. Fortunately only a Galil for him, but Mark are going to be the one that will pick first. 52 HP is chance. We'll get rid of Jax, who was the one that probably had to win this round. Kenny was going to be all but a distraction.
Unfortunate. And there it is, 3D Max. They're going to pick it up. 3 alive as well. Start to get that money rolling. Bomb plant down for G2 is going to mean they're only going to have to take the singular save. So, all things in all, still quite a close game between both teams. 2 Augs saved over, 1 AK for 3D Max. Good stuff. Should see a nice drawn-out game, I would be imagining.
Well, that's what we hope for, at least, right?
4 Augs. Alright. Cool. This is the world we live in.
It is. Well, you saw the effectiveness that G2 was able to get from them in Inferno. So why not try and take advantage of it as 3D Max? Aggressive grenade there from David as he actually pushes up mid a little bit. Hasn't been spotted by Shocks. Now, this is interesting. Just by his position, backing away. He'll be okay for now. G2 with the armor and pistol still in with a sniff in this round.
Yeah, you're always in for a good shot. I like the approach here. The 2 smokes being thrown out in towards middle and the lurk smoke out B should give them a pretty decent chance to be able to win this round with the CZ armor.
David taking a fair chunk of damage. If Shocks is able to get the timing here onto Devil, then things get a little bit interesting. Still sitting in that smoke in mid, while G2 makes their way onto the bomb site, but Haji and Devil doing good enough of a job to keep G2 at bay. And the bomb dropped in a really inopportune spot here for Shocks. He might be able to get the bomb down. We will be able to get the bomb down. What am I talking about? It's a present, it's not the bomb.
I mean,
with the orb.
In previous days, well, 1v3 for Shocks would be a present that you'd receive quite often.
Well, maybe we can see a little bit more of that magic coming back if he does manage to get the timing right here onto David. Locks down a strong position to hold that bomb from flashing back into the site, but isn't aware that there's a player in upper dark, so that'll be the end of the round quite easily in the favour of 3D Max.
Look, in a 1v3 when no one's peeked you for that long, you've got to start cutting some corners fast, and unfortunately, the patience from 3D Max pays off. 3 still alive once again, 2 rounds back to back for 3D Max. Bomb plant plus loss bonus equals another buy for G2. So, all things in all, a fairly back and forth game despite the scoreboard being all up for 3D Max thus far. G2 with still more opportunities to put rounds on the board.
Yeah, but where we saw G2 really have a big impact in the last map was when they got the full utility, full weaponry as well, and I don't know what to say about that one.
Vintage Kenny.
He's got the Bloodhound ult on, but that is maybe not going to matter too much as Marco's going to find a 3k. So, you take one and then you lose one. 2v2 now for Shocks and Kenny S.
The dream team. So, Shocks could potentially be picked by David here from top mid, and that would make all the difference, but he's just going to go, oh my lord, Maka, that's his 4th frag of the round. He's on for the ace, potentially, but Kenny, you cannot underestimate him in the 1v2. 2 opportunities is all he needs.
Yeah, definitely a winnable round for him. A flash would be lovely for 3D Max here, but they're not going to get it. A nice headshot, but it's not enough. Kenny S, great stuff. The first round for G2.
What else can he do? 4 kills, 1 ridiculous one through a smoke, and he digs Kenny, and you don't get that round?
Yeah.
You'd be kicking yourself. He pretty much ran, it's the equivalent of soccer, you know, he ran the ball all the way down the field from the opposite end, and then he left the ball right next to the goalpost, and just no one tapped it in.
I don't know what else to say. That was a round. That was a round. We'll just go with that. Look at that. Jeez. That's just some sort of 6th sense stuff. Spidey sense maybe for Kenny S. Straight out into long though in round number 5 for G2. A good flashbang. Not enough for Lucky to land the shot onto Jinx though.
Yeah, but they've lost, you know, one of the CTs and long control with 3 players on the A-bomb side. Shocks looking to open up the round in the mid-round as he did previously in the last round towards middle, which made that clutch so winnable from a round that looked like it was going so well for 3D Max thanks to Maka. Aforementioned is still alive, so potential here for nothing, as Shocks just absolutely finds the timing on him beautifully.
Perfect timing. It'll happen, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Well, 3v5.
Man, Shocks have been so good at just cutting the map in half. He just chills near the mid doors, and then some point in the middle of the round or the late round, Shocks is just going to drop that mid to B smoke, and G2 is just going to pile over towards B, and, you know, if you're not careful, that'll be the end of the round.
I won't be complaining if we see a little bit more of that. That was Definitely something special. All right, Kenny, what more have you got for us here? Let's just get a flick into that smoke, I reckon. Interesting stalemate between Body and David.
I have a stalemate with my body sometimes too.
Oh, this could be bad. This could be real bad.
Is he gonna... He's gonna have kit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And he's been hurt.
Has he?
Yep.
I thought he was. Anyway, regardless.
Jack's heard the drop, and that's why he stopped and ducked behind the box there.
Yeah,
Easy G2 round there, and you got to say, once again, I mean, that keep pick in mid is what set up both of those rounds for G2. Shock's just chilling in the mid doors, dropping the mid to B smoke. In the 2-on-2, or it might have been a 2-on-3 at that point, in which he did it in the round previous to the one we just saw. Yep. And in that round as well, perfect timing to come out and just pick Macca and cut the map in half once again.
Well, exactly. If you're able to control mid, you just pretty much control the entire map.
Yeah, CTs can't rotate as quickly. They have to go and take territory to be able to do so.
I mean, it's such a long rotate if you're not able to rotate through mid. Regardless, though, it's 3D Max taking 2 guns through, so a little bit to play with in this round, but for G2, on that comeback train straight away.
And look, I mean, as we were saying, at 3D Max off to a good start. 4 Augs, you know, 3 alive in back-to-back gun rounds. All great statements until the point where your CT economy gets cooked, and at that point you're back in the bin, basically. It's a slow run for G2. They don't want to take any extra chances. Their money hasn't had the opportunity to really build up because these rounds have been getting reasonably close. The last one not as close, but I mean, Kenny S pulling off that 1-on-2 definitely put G2's firmly back in the door.
Mm-hmm. See if they can kick the door open now, as they do have control. They have the momentum. David gets dropped, missing a few shots. Unfortunate for him. That was the chance for 3D Max. Now it feels like it's going to fall by the wayside. Shocks takes a little while to get rid of Macca, but in the end, doesn't matter too much. A-side fully in control of G2. And Jinx may be more than happy to just save the Org through to the next round at this point.
You'd be wanting to do so. I mean, look at the money on Devil and David P. You need that cash flow. You need to be able to get those smokes and incendiaries to be able to fight for that long control, to be able to hold down that B push potential in the earlier parts of the round. Because once you can navigate yourselves away from some of those dangers, that's where you can sort of make some more of those mid-round plays. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in the mid-round is where G2 have been so strong thus far.
A lot of time for G2 to hunt down this rifle as well. I wonder if they're quite going to get it. Lucky will have to hit a nice shot. Doesn't look like he'll push on any further, so Jinx will manage to go through. But there's a second window here that Lucky might be able to get it. Not quite. Alright. All's well that ends well for Jinx. Maybe not for the rest of 3D Max in that round.
I mean, for 3D Max here, if they're going to buy, and moving forward into a lot of these next couple of gun rounds, I'm really going to need to start to see, it looks like they're going to half invest, and they really probably want to save for orbs here and start to invest in that double orb potentially to give G2 a bit of a different look, but I'm going to really need to see them stop Shocks exploiting this mid for sure. And the other thing as well is that every time where they lose long control, they never really push upper dark. They don't really make a push on cat or mid. They need to start getting aggressive in the mid round, because it feels like a lot of the time G2, they're forcing their control over long, and the only time where it didn't work is when Macca got a ridiculous like 3k in a matter of seconds. That's not going to happen too often. So if G2's being able to exploit the fact that they're able to abuse this long control as well as exploiting you in the mid round, you know, you haven't got a leg to stand on. You really need to be playing a bit more reactively on Dust 2, like we see a lot more in the pros team, mixing in those upper dark pushes in when you see that you're losing long control time and time again, maybe going for cat control and trying to go for an aggressive pick towards middle.
Well, so far it's G2 that's really dictating things, more so than 3D Max.
And it was the same in the last map as well.
Yeah. It's still not at the point where G2 really fully have control. It's still kind of hanging in the balance. Inferno was well and truly gone by the wayside, but this one for 3D Max, if they can win a couple of quick rounds here, G2 will be on the back foot. Toward the B bomb site we go. Nice shot from Jax to get rid of Macca, but in the meanwhile, seeing a few kills go the way of 3D Max. Hard G maybe creeping through the smoke here to find Kenny S. The flashbang is good. Kenny will go down. No trade very quickly as the ult goes into his hands, but Jack's in a nice position here. A couple of quick headshots out from him, and 3D Max will fall by the wayside. Great stuff from Jax.
Should have been a 3D Max round. Jax bailed them out so hard there. He's running into B up against the CZ and just rips that player on top of the double stacks head off and closes out the 3-on-3 with a couple of quick AK headshots. 3D Max did wonderful, really exploiting G2, getting aggressively as individuals through the mid doors there and things of that like. And, I mean, without Jax cleaning up those players, he wouldn't have been around for G2.
Shots with the AWP. I'm just going to throw that one back over to Kenny. Obviously, the spawn for it.
I want to see what the difference here from 3D Max, because you could see already the two players were very close to tunnel there where G2 were going for that long control, so they might have been looking for the aggression towards upper dark, but now 3D Max, they've taken control of long, and they haven't given it to G2, so they have no reason to push upper dark this time around. Now we're going to be seeing a bit different of a round, and we'll see if 3D Max can make a better accounting of themselves this time around. Because it's going to boil down differently. G2, they don't have the long control. They've taken Cat instead. That's about all they have.
Not a bad grenade there onto Shocks. A bit of damage done to G2 here, which will slow them down a bit. So far, so good for G2, though. Just waiting for the right moment to take that peek. The flashbang has come through. Haji has been spotted. He's not really going to have too much backup here. He needs to do it all himself. And unfortunately, won't be able to do it. The smoke keeping the trade an impossibility. So long is taken control of by G2. Short still in the hands of 3D Max. It's a push and pull. It's even at the moment, 50-50. 4v4. Round could still go either way.
This is very hard for 3D Max to hold, though. They've lost Long and Cat. Sure, they've just taken Upper Dark, so they can be sure that this hit's coming in, but when the clock runs down and you've lost all control, it's incredibly hard to hold.
Yeah, you could see Mac had really no idea where he was getting pushed from there, and to try and swing around and won't be able to. Utility too strong from G2. A bomb site easily in their control. And another round that looks like it should be a pretty comfortable one for G2. You know, we see these close-ish rounds, and then straight away G2 answers back with a round that is really, really clean for themselves. I think that's what's putting 3D Max on the back foot, where when they get close, it's just not quite close enough.
That was just great fundamentals from G2. Really good decision making. I mean, when Mousesports were really good before, you know, with the Sunny and Rob's iteration of the lineup, and when Oscar was going off a lot, it's something that they used to do so well on Dust too. It's just the fact that they used to attack long while having cat control and just sandwich that A site and really run the clock down so well, and it makes it so hard on the CTs because you can't look in the perfect spot. When the clock's running down and the T's are closing in all around you, you've used all your util, you really just don't have a leg to stand on. It's only a matter of time before you get sandwiched between multiple players pushing you from both sides. It's incredibly hard to hold. You can never really know what to do in that situation, unfortunately, and that's a beautifully played round for G2. Even after they lose that long control and they don't get, you know, plan A, they go to plan B or C, and it works out beautifully for them. So it's going to be very hard for 3D Max going forward.
Quick play from Body. He almost gets ruined by the Molotov, but survives on 2 HP, gets the opening frag for G2 and starts to open up long a little bit. This will give the opportunity over to Lucky. Flashbang at least will keep another CT alive, but 3 left. Really much to write home about for 3D Max right now. They need to win some of these Angels. Lucky and Body still very low HP. I would argue a winnable round for 3D Max, but they've just lost 2 players. So 1v4, probably not. 4v3, you could have made an argument for it. Now Body will be dispatched off by David, but gets a bit of damage onto him and does get the info, more importantly, as well for G2. That'll be that. Kenny with a nice shot. Quick round out for G2.
3D Max has still got money to play with, but it really just feels like G2 is completely outplaying them right now. Like, that when they get the long control, it works so beautifully for them. They're able to win the round with it and don't really have to do anything too complicated to be able to win at that point. But
look at this.
What are we looking at?
What are we looking at? That's the real question. Lucky 9 and 5.
Yeah.
Pretty reasonable so far. 96 ADR from Jax.
I think he's their highest rated player on G2, actually. I was having a look.
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
Puts the tack pause out from 3D Max, and this is an incredibly hard tack pause to actually take because you're talking about multiple different scenarios that you're losing in. You're losing in the mid to late round where Shox is abusing mid. That's a problem. You're losing long control more often than you're having it. That's a big problem. And even when you take the long control, G2 just takes catwalk off you and slow plays into long and splits your A-bomb side, and you can't defend that either. So everything G2's doing is working, and the rounds where 3D Max, although to their credit, they are starting to try to play a little bit more reactively and get a bit more aggressive on the map when they do lose control, it's still not working for them. It really feels like G2's got them in the palm of their hand.
Yeah, maybe not this round though, as Jinx almost able to line a few up. He had an M4 there, might have been a couple more kills, but the FAMAS not quite enough.
Look at the change up from G2. They've shown a lot of patience, a lot of strategy, a lot of slow play and map control, and general good fundamentals, and then the good old pop flash 3 people through that B tunnel smoke, and
well, that grenade will bring it back to a 2v2, so that is nice. Where on earth is Shox? That is the question. Oh, there he is. Poor Maka, had no idea. RG might get one here, but even if he did, it probably wouldn't have mattered. Shox with a couple of nice shots to finish off the round, and all of a sudden we're up to 7-3. It felt, not that long ago when we were saying 3D Max have a pretty decent chance here on Dust 2. A few rounds go their way, and all of a sudden G2 just turn it on its head. Is this a tactical pause or a technical pause? Another tac pause for 3D Max. So 2 rounds in a row they've called a tactical pause. Lots to think about.
Too much to think about.
Probably.
It really feels like at this point, their money gets broken every second round because, it's classic CT side things. At this point, they're looking at conceding an 8-3 lead to G2, and after that, they're really going to have to look at themselves in the mirror and start to say, play better, as you would say, Jordan. But more than that, I really feel like G2's got them in the palm of their hand. Like I said, everything that they're doing is working. They're really changing things up quite regularly, and it's quite hard to read for 3D Max. The decision-making and fundamentals all over the spot are very, very good. So 3D Max, I feel like they're going to have to set the pace in this game. Going to have to see some special plays out of them to grind a few more rounds off the board. And a pistol round would be a good start.
Oh, it's a double AWP set up here for the T side as well, I might add. Kenny S is just absolutely demolishing 3D Max. Yeah, it's pistols, but let's get excited for a little bit. Yeah. It's 2 AM. I'm allowed to have some fun.
Prime time. That's your prime time.
That's my prime time.
You keep telling me.
I'm an absolute gamer. Staying up until 6 AM. Let's go.
All your new toys, your fork, knife, or whatever your kids play these days.
Apex Legends, man. Get on it. Well, this one will be falling by the wayside pretty quickly for 3D Max, one would expect. An AK for Jinx at the very least to take through.
Yeah, look, it's better than nothing, but next round he's got so much loss bonus, I don't think he really cares about anything but maybe the one-shot potential. It's going to be about it. So, looking like an 8th for G2. 3D Max. Let's see something different. Let's see some tunnel aggression. Let's see some reckless aggression up catwalk or a double AWP setup. Show me something, because, you guys cannot beat G2 in a straight-up game right now. Their decision-making is far too good. It's not even the individuals going off and absolutely, wrecking you with the firepower. This game in particular, it's the team approach that's winning them the rounds. It's playing off of each other. It's making the right fundamental decisions at the key points in the rounds. And, 3D Max, if you can't beat them by out-thonking them, then you better be getting in there and getting some swift headshots.
It doesn't seem like either of those are working right now. Very good stuff from Kenny S, and it's exactly the kind of map where you want him to be popping off. Here on Dust 2, Shox with the secondary AWP.
Another secondary AWP on 3D Max's side, so maybe a little bit different of an approach this time.
Maybe not for Kenny S. Same position.
They're going to fight for the long control, and it's good utility usage out from 3D Max. Maybe a little bit too much.
Not hitting that flick.
It's going to be an interesting thing for G2 to see, for Kenny to communicate that. You might think that that's the third person rotating over towards the B side of the map. Jumping across middle like that at that point in the round.
That late in the round, yeah, surely. And also interesting for G2 now to sort of discern what they actually want to do in this round now that they haven't gotten any of those early picks with the double orb. You know, it's going to make life a little more difficult trying to get some entries. Shock's still looking into mid doors. A push from David. And this is what you wanted to see. It's only going to result in a 1-for-1, but the information there for Devil, missing a crucial shot with the orb. The chance here for Body, but he won't hit it, and the flashbang comes in a second too late. Shocks won't be able to get the trade. It all comes down to Kenny S here, making something magic happen, hiding in that smoke. Marcus got no idea. And Kenny S might be the hero once again. He'll hear that scope, gets the P250 out. Oh my goodness, he's going to do it. The knife! Oh dear. Well, could go worse for 3D Max. At least Haji's able to get the trade pretty quickly. 30 seconds in the round, G2 Esports. Where do we go from here? B bomb site. Definitely defended. Can they get to A? Rotations coming in. Shocks won't hit the shot. An important one for him as well to miss there, as it really puts quite a bit of an onus now onto Lucky. Get the important kill onto Haji, and that will allow the bomb plant to go down. So, he's actually going to fake the plant. What a madman. An absolute genius, though.
There is no way that... I just feel like that is not correct to fake in that scenario. Like, he could be anywhere. You're so sure that he's CT there. Like, dear Lord, the ball's on this man. Works out for him, though, so it's correct. If it works, it's correct.
What a round, though.
And, I mean, I'm already down 9-3 and 1 map. I feel like I'm getting tunneled as 3D Max, and then
You've just been knifed in the back.
Yeah, you're getting knifed. Kenny's running through smokes.
One opening frag in the round, at least, so a chance here. Let's see what Haji can do. Putting himself forward with the flashbang, and it's unfortunately not going to work out for 3D Max. So, more of the same for G2. As Shock locks down middle. Devil close, and he is going to be flushed out by this molly.
Okay, so less money than they had in the previous gun round. We saw a little bit more aggression, a little bit more disruptiveness, but, you know, despite that 1-for-1 and the info gather by pushing B tunnels in that point in the round from 3D Max, I mean, they still weren't able to make it work because they're just not hitting their shots at the moment. Feels like Maka is the main person that's feeling pretty confident and ready to play at this point, but I mean, that's not going to be enough to get 3D Max back into this game.
Oh, quick play toward B. It's going to work for G2 as well. The auto sniper not getting any tags, but it does not matter. Devil's going to have to come up absolutely massive here, and unfortunately, he is not. So, bomb site taken for G2. And it's starting to feel more and more like Inferno. Kenny S through the flash. I'm not even surprised at this point, Philly.
Can't just peace out. Like, Kenny's just hitting everything, man.
It looks like we might be going home early.
Potentially. And again, it's like, it felt like 3D Max was trying a lot harder to get into this game, but the decision making from G2 was incredible. The way they're changing up these rounds is so hard for 3D Max to win.
Shocks.
Getting his toes.
You put the slippers on, your toes are a little bit cold.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter anyway.
There's those steel caps.
Yeah, steel cap boots. Just reflecting the bullets back.
The most critical piece of body armor.
Oh, yeah. Toes are important.
Yep.
Just think about it. If your feet get shot, what are you going to do? You can't walk.
Just walk on my toes. It's fine.
Someone shoots your...
Kenny's got the 1-3-3-7 scoreline. Pretty decent.
Yeah.
I rate it.
You rate it?
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. What is this? Double auto sniper, triple orb. Surely you get a tag here. Come on, guys.
No.
Nope. Well, that's disappointing. Last round of the half, though, so it doesn't matter too much. And finally the tag comes. It's from SG, or from the org, sorry.
Who'd have thunk it? Alright, so pretty much a nothing start to the round. Boost in lowers to see if anyone's aggressing Cat. Nothing can be seen on Cat, and we can see a lot of utility onto long control. And for those people not well versed with the Counter-Strike, lingo, if you see a lot of grenades towards long and you don't see anyone on the catwalk, you can probably go take the catwalk. So GT is going to go take the catwalk.
Well, there you go. You learn something new every day. David. Stoic through the flashbang, not expecting the peak. Still taking control of Upper Dark. So this is something good from 3D Max. late in the half, very late in the half, but at least around where it looks like they have the info, looks like they have the knowledge. And it all comes down to the timing here of David.
I mean, that's what the meta is on Dust 2 at the moment. It's really just playing with the utility and trying to play reactively and push the right parts of the map at the right time. You lose long, you take middle, or you push up a dark, etc, etc. So take cut, you go for a bit of a push on long, something.
Timing doesn't work in his favour, so 3D Max once again with a player deficit. At the very least, they will know or expect that the A bomb site is where the hit is going to come. A lot of utility here for G2 as the flashbangs do come in. Haji ducking below the boxes on the site. Should be mollied off there. Body gets absolutely bodied. And a chance here now for 3D Max as they hit quite a few nice shots. Haji gets his head ripped off, but not before he's done some damage. Bomb plan's going to go down for short, which is good. Lucky covering off the bomb site. Crucial kill. It's 3D Max now put themselves back into a 2v2 post-plant scenario. Lucky in another 1v2. Can he win another one? In a good position. Bombs planted for him. A great shot onto Jinx. Marker with the flashbangs out from Lucky. He knows exactly where he is. Doesn't hit the shot. Time ticking away though. Marker's going to have to push on forward. P250 out. And gets the headshot. And that might just be...
I thought the wide swing was coming out for sure. He doesn't even wide swing in with the 5-7. He just smacks him.
Yeah.
Gives him the clothesline. Unbelievable that this man's able to clutch that one out.
If you think, like, what could go worse for 3D Max?
The worst part is, like, they've had a decent run on this map in this qualifier thus far, and it really feels like they are trying to do a better job in this game than they are in Inferno, but you know what?
It's not happening.
Counter-Strike doesn't care about your feelings.
No, neither does G2, apparently.
Doesn't matter how you're feeling heading into this game.
Lucky with a couple of unreal clutches, 1v2s. I mean, it's just all the rounds that you even think that 3D Max has an advantage in it doesn't work that way. You know, you think, well, who was it? Marker got the 4K earlier on in the start of the half, and it still went the way of G2.
It really just feels like G2's a lot better than 3D Max on this map. Like, that's what it feels like to me. It feels like 3D Max are like, you know, 1 to 2 to 3 steps behind G2 at all points in time. Like, 3D Max are like, yeah, we really feel like we're losing map control here, so David P's really trying to go for the uppers push in that scenario, whereas G2, they're like, it's like that meme with the brain exploding or whatever. They're on like the 3rd or the 4th one, and 3D Max are still working through the 2nd.
Yeah, Jinx trying to push on forward, but Jax is the one that's doing the damage right now. Eventually he will fall, but have done enough as the rotation coming across. Look at this, an army of G2 players making their way toward B, and 3D Max still cowering away in upper dark, trying to make their way into the side itself. Lucky will push through the smoke, backed up by a couple of teammates. That might not have been the play. G2, a little over-eager, turn it back into a 2v2 as 3D Max with an advantageous aim duel will be allowed to get the bomb down. Well, it turns on its head a little bit. G2 have to think about this one. But shots coming from the tunnels. They don't know that he's there, and this is the chance for the round for G2. Does get a headshot across, but it's going to be absolute devastation. 4v2 goes the way of 3D Max. Well, is that the way back in?
It definitely is. I mean, the last time they were at a pretty disadvantageous scoreline, they dropped the pistol round to G2, and we all saw how that went on Inferno. This time around, it makes such a big difference because if you aren't able to win that first pistol round on the CT side of Dust 2, that really prolongs the number of gun rounds it's going to take, or the number of ecos it's going to take to be able to get full utility, to be able to get Kenny S and AWP in his very capable hands. And, you know, that's going to push that back for a couple of rounds. It's going to allow 3D Max to potentially get their confidence going, get themselves back into the game, potentially build up some money if they're not just going to go willy-nilly peeking into pistols here and there.
Yeah, well, I mean... Speaking of confidence, G2 might have had a little bit too much of that. Well, they do manage to get a frag out, so it's not all bad news for G2, but it's pretty bad news.
That's beautiful from Hachi. He's showing us all elements of CSGO. The AD Mac 10 spray aiming below the guy's feet, followed up by the Swift 1B with the Glock on mid-doors.
I feel like...
he's got it all worked out.
A bit of the sodium bicarbonate right now.
I can't even move the mouse and the keyboard at the same time. It's just not possible.
Well, I don't know if you'd want to be moving your keyboard, to be honest, when you're playing Counter-Strike.
Are you sure?
Well, you tell me.
That's how I turned the character.
We've gotten to that point already. It's 2:30 in the morning and we're cooked. Oh, well.
You don't have turn buttons enabled, or...?
No.
Alright.
Luckily, it's a pistol. We're not really missing too much. P250's out for D2. We're making the push into upper dark, so a bit of information there for them. Bit of a push on long as well. Not going to work out. Ah, goodness me, Philly.
Good thing for 3D Max is they're really holding on to a lot of guns, trying to build up their money a little bit more. You saw, I think, only one, maybe two of them died in the last round up against that full eco. This time around, G2, they're going to take that second save because it's the pistol factor there, Jordan. They didn't pick up that first pistol. They're going to have to wait longer to be able to buy that utility, to be able to buy the orbs. So they're just going to precursor all of that. They don't want to go for the questionable buy of M4s and some pretty lackluster utility. You want to go for those juicy orgs. You want to go for that double orb setup. You want to get all the Molotovs that you can possibly buy to be able to cook some of these 3D Max blokes.
Okay.
Five alive.
Yeah, but it's going to be the gun round coming up, so this is what we've been waiting for.
There it is. 4 orgs and all the utility.
Scopes out the wazoo.
This is where, as 3D Max, I feel like you just don't play a straight up round. You just don't go into Kenny S's AWP and all the utility in the world. They're going to go for the long control. I can respect that. Jinx is going to throw the smoke to the corner. Flashes over the top from all the lads. It's instantly given up. G2 don't even want long. They're not interested. So they must have something particular in mind. Oh my lord, the pace from these lads.
They've got Kenny S in mind. He doesn't miss. He hasn't been missing all night.
David was on an adventure.
Yeah. Captain Cook. He was looking for Australia, but unfortunately he didn't find it. And I don't know if they're going to find it right now, but Pilly. It's getting to that point.
Some sandy, arid territory, but I don't think we have that many domes on the top of our structures as they have on this map.
No. Generally speaking, not.
And I don't think I've ever seen a soccer ball, but I haven't been outside, so...
Alright. What do we do here as 3D Max? It's 3v5.
You wait for an overextension, and then you try to take the part of the map that you think has been pushed through, which is pretty much everywhere. It's a pretty rough one. I feel like the approach from 3D Max is pretty good. You go for the classic walk into B, try to headshot 2 counter-terrorist players, and if you could do that, then you could try and win the round in the 3v3 post-flight.
Sounds easy enough. Easier said than done, I'm sure. Shocks holding the angle on his own, but rotation starting to come across here for G2, and right about in time. There's still a chance now for 3D Max as they get one on the rotate as well, which turns it into a 3v3. Problem is, 15 seconds on the clock right now. Body watching the cross. There's no smokes for the cross either for 3D Max, so this is an incredibly tough round. They need to hit the headshot, and Billy, I think it might be just a little too late now for them, as the bomb not going to be planted. Body gets one as well. It doesn't matter. G2. If there was a smoke there for 3D Max, they might have been undone. But the lack of utility was the real problem for 3D Max there.
That was a crazy amount of confidence in his friends there from Devil. He's still lurking in the 5-on-3 situation in middle, and he does get the kill in the rotation player, but like, come on man, like, you're heading into the B bomb site with no smokes on any of your friends, and you're hoping that they're just going to 1B everyone, I suppose. Wishful thinking, you got to cut some corners. Wow, the utility usage from G2 in this round in particular, it's quite impressive to be able to take long control. Clearly worked on a lot of this stuff. Haji's just going to... I mean, I was going to say do the big brain play, but he just walks straight into the org of Jack, spraying down through the smoke. He's going to have none of it. And 3D Max at a disadvantage, starting to run out of money and players again.
Yeah, it's just... I feel like a broken record right now, but G2 looking too good today. 3D Max can't get the consistency right. They get a couple of nice rounds or a couple of nice frags, and they make something look good, but it's just not enough as G2, all class, able to dispatch of them really easily at this point.
It feels like G2 set the tempo this entire series, and 3D Max, they always feel just a little bit too slow to adjust. That is already like such a nice flick from Kenny, rather. Just the fact that he goes for the head there. Beautiful.
Why not? Put him in the ground a little bit more.
Yeah, but it's like the whole time it feels like 3D Max is just a little bit one step behind G2. Always feels like G2 is setting the precedent, setting the tempo, and by the time that 3D Max feels like they want to take a tactic pause to adjust, time and time again, G2 throws the spanner in the works. That's where they throw their wildcard strap.
Kenny starting off well. Once again, the Orb having the impact, and now the Orb trying to have a look in. Can't see too well over the Molotov smoke as Lucky and Body do go down. It's not going to be too much of a problem. Kenny is here. He's lining them up, and I would not have been surprised to see him hit that final shot as well, to be fair.
I just love the way where he's scoping there. He's like scoping at people's toes, and then he's like, I'm going to flick upwards.
It's like he's purposefully not pre-aiming.
He's purposely not aiming where it should be.
You know when you're in a DM server and you run
run
around the corner backwards to try and get that flick shot? I feel like that's what he's trying to do.
I don't know what kind of DM you're doing, Jordan, but I personally can't turn my keyboard fast enough to be able to hit those kind of shots.
Let's not go back to that. Alright, last round potentially coming up here for G2. It certainly feels like it could be. 3D Max do have some guns as a very last resort, but not very much utility here. And Kenny S, what a night he is having. Starting off once again in the round with the pick, and well, there's another one for Shocks. So 3v5, 3D Max. I think this might be the last we're going to be seeing of them.
They've just lost 2 picks in like very quick succession every single T-gun round since G2 have got the money. This is disrespect. They're just fighting. They're like, get out of the pit. What are you doing?
Literally standing in the middle of nowhere.
They're just standing in the open. They're like, get out of the server.
Yeah. I think that's the point where we are at, as G2 are going to be forcing 3D Max out of the server. And there it is, Kenny S. Fittingly, the last frag goes his way. It turns out 2 is better than 3. Purely as G2 are the ones that are going to be picking up the victory tonight and going on to face Big in the next match. And that's going to be a tough one for them, but certainly the match against G2, against 3D Max, I should say, didn't really look like a particularly tough one there for G2, I didn't think.
Yeah, absolutely thumped them. I would have to agree with you. And G2, I mean, we only really saw them play a meaty part of 2 halves, I would say. And for a team like Big waiting in the upper bracket that are going to be wanting to look over some of the things they've seen from G2 thus far today, there's not a lot to look at. I mean, there's 2 good halves to get a sample size from, but you've got to say, even one of those halves on Inferno, it's like his body going to absolutely ruin the other team as hard as he did previously. It really just feels like G2, they're really hitting their stride today. The individuals are firing on all cylinders, and if we're going to see that continue into the next series against Big, then it should be quite a close and hotly contested series.
Yeah, and, actually. I mean, I'm actually kind of keen for it now. Like, obviously I was keen for it beforehand, but after having seen G2 playing like that, the shots that they're hitting, Kenny S is looking pretty good tonight. I mean, I think this could be a pretty interesting game. You know, it's best of 5, right? So extra map potential there as well, as we can go to 4 maps. Big, of course, with the map advantage. I mean, yeah, G2 looking actually the goods tonight.
Look, all I got to say is, like, someone's got to sneak into the G2 headquarters and they got to sticky tape over the German flag, a French flag, because every time G2 plays a French team, they seem to absolutely thump them, or they seem to have a really good matchup against them. And when it comes to playing some of those other international teams, you might not see them hitting the same kind of form. But maybe this is the start of that, and I'm really keen to see how they go up against Big, who, we got to say, is sort of, you know, the bottom end of the top 10 kind of team at the moment. They're on the up and up, and with the, you know, shuffles that they're doing around in that roster, really trying to find, you know, how they want to make a combination of their players moving forward. It should be a pretty interesting thing to see for sure.
Yeah, I've always kind of looked at Big as a pretty kind of cool team to watch, just because of the mix of players and the rosters that they've always had. You know, it's always a multinational roster, and I mean, bringing in Xantaras as well. I've always enjoyed watching him as a player, even back from the Space Soldiers days, which unfortunately we didn't get to see them doing too well, obviously, at IEM Sydney last year, but maybe Xantaras can make his way this year to IEM Sydney. I think you're looking at Big right now as the team that is in that pole position to make their way through to IEM Sydney, but this next matchup coming up between G2 and Big is what's going to be the real tell-all. And for both of these two teams, for all of these players, who none of whom I believe have actually been to an IEM Sydney before, I think it's a pretty big match coming up.
Yeah, definitely should be. For me, it's really a question of whether we're going to see the same G2 we just saw against 3D Max, because I feel like Big, they've already got the 1 map advantage. They've looked pretty decent throughout the qualifier, you know, maybe had a map taken over off them in overtime from 3D Max, but they thumped them on the other 2 maps. They're looking by far the strongest team in this qualifier, and unless G2 can bring the fire that we just saw in that last series, then it should be a pretty sure thing that Big should go through, especially with that advantage, like we said.
I mean, they are bringing the fire, though. That's the thing. Like, the
True.
question, though, for me is, like, how long can they keep that going?
Yep.
You know, we've already highlighted that consistency for G2.
They need 3 maps of it.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen 2, so they technically need 5 maps of it tonight. So, I mean, that's definitely a big ask, I think.
Yeah, but you know, the promising signs comes down to how we saw them just play Dust 2. You know, the fundamentals were there. That wasn't necessarily one player going absolutely ham and thumping the other team into submission. You know, really it was some of the good decision making of a team basis. We saw some really good creative utility towards the end of the game as well, and just the way that they were sort of approaching rounds together on a team-wide scale was impressive to see. So hopefully some more of that, as well as some, you know, 20 bombs in one half from body as well.
I don't want to get too far into the analysis, I suppose, of the next match as to who we think is going to win, but I would kind of want to know actually who you'd like to see coming to IEM Sydney out of these 2 teams. But again, because neither of them have been here before, so we kind of get a bit of a new team coming through.
I think I'd like to see Big, just because I really enjoy their play style. They're a personal favourite team of mine and have been for quite a while. They always bring a creative approach, and they always sort of, whenever they have an obstacle to come up against that's a better team than them, then they always seem to impress and come up with something creative.
All right, well, we'll see whether or not you're going to get your wish, Pilly. Guys, we're going to head to a break, but don't go too far. We'll be back with the best of 5 upper bracket final for the qualification slot for IEM Sydney after this. Down the incendiary, takes the secondary angle. Nice flick, in fact, from Kenny. Yes, this might be a day
Disruptive, not letting them set up what they wanted to do.
Come on, look at this body, just lining them up. It's a firing range of the round. If shots can come up big, if he can deny the bomb plant, even if he can just get 2, that's more than enough. And he's grabbed Bo.
Yeah.
Might get another one here as well, and he does. Heat coming out from Maka, and this is just now. Still holding on to it. They might get put in the ground as a result. Punished, absolutely. Marker goes as well. As we head on to the A-bomb site for G2, I think there's definitely some problems ahead for 3D Max. In fact, was framed, to be fair, prior to the last couple of series.
That's a classic. The time you got to be hitting if you were Devil last time, but there, Shox doesn't hit it either, and he gets double peaked. Oh, the rain of that.
But how much help that is going to be for them. Where David P very quickly and a very nice shot as well. As Shox goes down, bomb carryout is when they got the full utility, full weaponry as well. And I don't know what to say about that one.
Here from top mid, and that would make all the difference. But he's just going to go, oh my lord, Maka. That's his 4th special plays out of them to grind a few more rounds off the board. And a pistol round would be a good start.
Oh, it's a double AWP set up here for the T side as well, I might add. Kenny S is just, he puts quite a bit of an onus now onto Lucky. The important kill onto Haji, and that will allow the bomb plant to go down. So, he's actually going to take the plant. What a madman. An absolute. And it's starting to feel more and more like Inferno. Kenny S through the flash. Oh, can he win another one? Good position. Bombs planted for him. A great shot onto Jinx.
So they must have something particular in mind. Oh my lord,
they've got Kenny S.
lads.
They've got Kenny S in mind.
3D Max, they always feel just a little bit too slow to adjust. That is...
Thinks you can't get a last-second clutch? Watch this. Think he can't carry his team while streaming in high resolution? All the while recording a once-in-a-lifetime win? Watch this. Think leveling up only happens in-game? Watch this. On Intel Core i7, they'll rise to every challenge. Now it's your turn. Game, record, stream without compromise on Intel Core i7.
Prepare for combat. Go forth and conquer.
From the back roads to back streets, I see you foes trying to trap me, but I don't run like a track meet, even though I'm #1 like an athlete. And the way I maneuver around you and through you, I'm coming and I'm bound to pursue you. I'm everything that you knew of, plus more. What's in store is I'm about to get to ya. Sleepless nights, better think this twice before you step to me and come and speak with strife. There's a lesson when you reach my life. It'll be checking and I teach you right. Plenty tried, plenty failed. Too many times I seen plenty bail. And there will be no surprise what I'm about to do when you are looking through my eyes. See many go, see many come. See that they won't bring it to me, son. Try me if you want, but won't be any fun. I'll take the challenge, I'll beat anyone. I'm the one, I'll be quite clear. Bow down to no one, I'm right here. I get it in, I don't fight fair. And guess what? I'm your worst nightmare. Cause I ain't taking no losses, and I don't even care what the cost is. Are you prepared for the forces I'm about to bring? Cause I'm the boss of all bosses. I penetrate your thoughts and fill them with doubt. You gon' feel where I'm coming and feel what I'm about. If they come in with the drama, I'm wheeling them out. Cause I ain't about to have somebody here stealing my clout. I keep my friends close, enemies closer, cause that's the way it is and the way it's supposed to be. Anybody can see there's only room for one, and that one is me. Plenty tried, plenty failed. Too many times I seen plenty bail. And there will be no surprise what I'm about to do when you are looking through my eyes. See many go, see many come. See that they won't bring it to me, son. Try me if you want, but won't be any fun. I'll take the challenge, I'll beat anyone. I'm the one, I'll be quite clear. Bow down to no one, I'm right here. I get it in, I don't fight fair. And guess what? I'm your worst nightmare. I'm your worst nightmare. Are you prepared? I'm your worst nightmare. rose to me and come and speak with strife. Any fun? I take the challenge. Are you prepared for the beat? Anybody can try me if you want, but won't be. Even though it'll be chin checking and I treat you right. I'm the one to fill them with doubt. You gon' plenty fail. I gotta know when I'm right here. forces. I penetrate you, there will be no surprise. From the back roads to back streets, I see you foes trying to trap me, but I don't run like a track meet, even though I'm number one like an athlete. And the way I maneuver around you and through you, I'm coming and I'm bound to pursue you. I'm everything that you knew of, plus more. What's in store is I'm about to get to you. Sleepless nights, but I think it's twice before you step to me and come and speak with strife. There's a lesson when you reach my life. It'll be you checking and I treat you right. Plenty tried, plenty failed. Too many times I seen plenty bail. And there will be no surprise what I'm about to do when you are looking through my eyes. See many go, see many come. See that they won't bring it to me, son. Try me if you want, but won't be any fun. I'll take the challenge, I'll be anyone. I'm the one, I'll be quite clear. Bow down to no one, I'm right here. I get it in, I don't fight fair. And guess what? I'm your worst nightmare. Cause I ain't taking no losses, and I don't even care what the cost is. Are you prepared for the forces I'm about to bring? Cause I'm the boss of all bosses. I penetrate your thoughts and fill them with doubt. You gon' feel where I'm coming and feel what I'm about. If they come in with the drama, I'm wheeling them out. Cause I ain't about to have somebody here stealing my clout. I keep my friends close, enemies closer, cause that's the way it is and the way it's supposed to be. Anybody can see there's only room for one, and that one is me. Plenty tried, plenty failed. Too many times I seen plenty bail. And there will be no surprise what I'm about to do when you are looking through my eyes. See many go, see many come. See that they won't bring it to me, son. Try me if you want, but won't be any fun. I'll take the challenge, I'll be anyone. I'm the one, I'll be quite clear. Bow down to no one, I'm right here. I get it in, I don't fight fair. And guess what? I'm your worst nightmare. I'm your worst nightmare. Are you prepared? I'm your worst nightmare. I know you scared. I'm your worst nightmare. Are you prepared? I'm your worst nightmare. I know you scared. From the back roads to back streets, I see you foes trying to trap me, but I don't run like a track meet, even though I'm #1 like an athlete. And the way I maneuver around you and through you, I'm coming and I'm bound to pursue you. I'm everything that you knew of, plus more. What's in store is
Hello, welcome back to the IEM Sydney EU closed qualifiers. Thanks for sticking with us. If you were sticking around, if you're just joining us, welcome. It's been a pretty interesting night so far, Pilly. We had G2 up against 3D Max. Pretty comfortable win there for G2 in those two maps, and now they find themselves up against Big in the upper bracket final and the qualifying match for IEM Sydney.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to tune in for any game, then you've got to go for this one. It's two heavy hitters of the scene coming up against each other for a high-pressure spot in one of the premier tournaments of the early part of 2019.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not talk about IEM Katowice. Who cares about that? IEM Sydney is what we really care about. We're from Australia. We're in Australia. It's 4 a.m. We're ready for some Counter-Strike. I mean, this game, like, looking at this one, coming into the entire qualifier, you know, Big was always going to be one of the teams I think that we were looking to probably make their way through to the top stages of it. I mean, we've got a lot of good teams in there. I think Hellraisers was the biggest surprise for me to be the one that kind of dropped out quite early. But G2 and Big, you know, both teams that were invited straight into the qualifier, they didn't have to qualify through. And as these things generally tend to go, the teams that do get invited as opposed to having to qualify through the open qualifiers, generally speaking, the stronger team. So not too surprising, I think, to see both Big and G2 here in this match.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, G2, we saw them drop down a series up against 3D Max in the upper bracket, and sometimes that can happen, you know, with your domestic matchups, but they absolutely made up for that one in that last series we watched. They smacked 3D Max around with what seemed to be relative ease. If you're looking in the upper bracket, Big versus 3D Max, it's a 2-1. Bit of context for that one there for you. 3D Max were able to pick up an overtime victory versus Big, a very close affair in one of the maps, and the other two maps the Big won. They 16-3'd and 16-5'd them or something like that.
16-3 and 16-4.
Really, not a close series at all. Big are looking pretty hot so far in this qualifier. They're really looking to grab that spot in the IEM Sydney, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I think really important for both of these two teams. No, I mean, you know, we say it's important. It may be not important to them, but I assume that it is. I think a lot of these players probably have never even been to Australia before. That seems to be a general trend for a lot of the professional players that have come over to IEM Sydney for the first time. They say, you know, we've never been to Australia, we've always wanted to go. Now they finally have that opportunity. So this is kind of a big deal, I think, for quite a few teams. Not even just the teams, but for casters and that kind of thing as well. I know all the casters had a good time here last time. So, yeah, something different for a lot of teams to kind of experience. It's something that, you know, only comes around now, I guess, once a year. And this is the best opportunity now for both of these two teams, both of whom have never been to an IEM Sydney. You said you hoped it was going to be Big before we went to the break about an hour and a half ago. But you know, do you think it's actually going to be Big? That was the question that I was going to forestall until this point. So kind of want to know, do you feel as though Big has got the better chance here than G2? I think it's probably easier to say that they do.
Yeah, it feels really scary to go against G2 for the second time in the night, especially after they absolutely spanked 3D Max. Yeah. And I thought 3D Max was going to take them out in that last series. That look, G2 are looking really, really hot, but I really just feel like Big are going to come away with this one. They've already got the 1-0 advantage. The map pool doesn't really line up for me and doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence in certain points where I feel like Big's got a pretty decent chance against G2 on a lot of maps in terms of keeping things nice and close and be able to come away with those victories. And then there's even 1 or 2 maps in the map pool that I really feel like Big can just get a freebie win up against G2. When you're already coming in a best-of-5 series with the 1 map advantage, if you could just pretty easily and handily win a map without too much effort against your opponent, without exerting too much or really showing too much of you know, your strats and all that kind of stuff, and really exerting yourself to be able to take that map victory away. All you need is 1 close map victory over your opponent to take the whole series away. Whereas I feel like G2, they have to work for every single map in this series to be able to come away with it. And they're coming from behind already.
All right, well, very much on the side of big. We'll see whether or not you're right. Now, we're going to have a look at the vetoes pretty quickly. Just before we get too far in that discussion, again, you've got to remember that big does come in with that map advantage. So whatever the remaining map is in this pool is technically going to be the auto victory for big. So Nuke and Train taken away there. I don't think there's too many surprises. Both of them tend to be permanent vetoes for their respective teams. So let's have a look at the picks here. Cache, Dust 2. Now, I know you were really interested in that Cache pick in particular from big.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Cache, it feels like it's one of the weaker maps for G2, at least statistically, and, you know, it's never really filled me with a lot of confidence watching G2 play Cache, so, I mean, I feel like that should be a pretty easy one for Big to come away with, and if they're able to do that, they're already just one map away from heading towards IM Sydney, coming in with that 1-0 advantage from the upper bracket. Then even going on to Dust 2, this is a map that Big have a fair bit of experience playing as well. So, I mean, there's no freebies here for G2 at all.
Yeah, definitely not. How the rest of the map pool shapes up, it's going to be Mirage and then Inferno. So I guess toward the later stages of this series, if we get there, that's where maybe there's the opening. I think those are the maps that Big doesn't play quite as much or quite as well on the likes of Mirage and Inferno. But then again, you could kind of argue the same maybe for G2. So we'll see. Obviously, Inferno went pretty well for them up against 3D Max earlier on today. We saw Kenny looking pretty fantastic. We saw Body looking fantastic. And when they had this, didn't really seem to skip a beat at all. So they're in pretty good form, at least considering that match against 3D Max, but I kind of feel like Big's a bit of a...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really, really good to see some of these G2 players really show up. Even some of their decision-making and their tactics thus far today have looked pretty... We want to see what happens to G2 when they get tested a little bit more, because it felt like in both of those maps in the series we watched them play against 3D Max, it felt like 3D Max wasn't really mentally there, or they were always one step behind. And individually, you know, apart from Maka having a couple rounds here or there, 3D Max, it didn't seem like they were playing up to their full potential, up to their full standard, and it felt like, you know, G2 didn't really have to exert themselves or really deep or come up with some creative solutions on the fly to be able to come away with some of those map victories. So I want to see them get tested by Big. And
earlier on in the bracket, we looked at it and said, you know, this could be a close match. You sort of think it up.
Yep.
Not the case, unfortunately, for them. And I guess the experience and the firepower coming through there for G2, different sort of a ballpark here for them. I mean, Big are definitely a team that kind of, they've always been toward the top level of things, but never quite breaking the top 10. I guess they are kind of around there.
Oh, they're always in those heights. There's one or two tournaments in the year, like you're talking about Cologne.